morning. Thank you all for coming to another of our many seminars. We talk about making money off the boat, or the boat being a business. One of the primary things that people think about is the conventional bareboat charter. This has been around for many, many years. You read some of the magazines over there, Sail Magazine or Cruising World. You see these advertisements for moorings and all these exotic ports and many other companies out in the Caribbean and different places where you can go and charter a boat, take it for a week, take it for a weekend, those kinds of things. There are local charter operations, bareboat charter operations up and down the coast here. One of them is marina sailing, which included in the package is a flyer that they gave us to pass out. They, along with several other companies, operate bareboat charter operations in California, and marina sailing is one of them. They have a very strong reputation on the West Coast here. But what exactly is a bareboat charter? Basically, you own the boat, and you provide it to them. They manage it, they maintain it, they service it, they clean it, they advertise it, they schedule it, and they have people that go out on your boat for what's called a bareboat charter, which means basically they take the boat out without a skipper. They're responsible for the boat. They're supposedly checked out by the charter company. Most of these charter companies have a series of classes that they have people go through to make sure that they can get to the level to take your boat out comfortably and safely. So they act basically as a manager for your boat, and they get a fee for that, of course. The fee is typically around 40% of whatever revenue is generated by the boat, the charter company. That can sometimes be negotiated a little bit. If you've got a boat that they know is going to go out a lot, they might give you a little bit of a break. But again, that's something you have to talk about the individual charter company. While the boat's in charter, you still have access to the boat. It's still your boat. You can take it out when it's not scheduled for a charter. You can go down in the evening and have a glass of wine and have some cheese and crackers, enjoy the sunset on a beautiful summer evening. There are some limitations as to exactly how much personal usage you can have with the boat. Again, that's something you have to really talk with an accountant about. But for the most part, it's still your boat. You still get to use the boat. And if you're going to take it out on a holiday weekend, you got to make sure it's not already scheduled for a charter. If you are taking it out for a 4th of July, that's probably a time when the boat would have been rented, so you're losing the revenue that would have been generated. So, again, these are just things you have to think about. But it's still your boat. You still get to use it. And so you're getting revenue from the boat. Let's say it brings in $1,000 in any given month. That's $600 that just went in your pocket. And you still get to use your boat. What could be better? It even gets better than that. Now the boat, because it's generating revenue, is now a business per se, and businesses have deductions. So there's a lot of deductible expenses with the boat. And in that marina sailing package, if you open it up, there's a breakdown here of the sample charter annual revenue. And they take just a sample boat, which they, in this case, use a Catalina 38. There's an average sale price, or what they project a sales price of $170,000. So that takes your cost of buying the boat. And then the next section there, they talk about what you're likely to generate from that boat. Let's say it goes out 100 days in the season. They're charging $369 per day, so you've got revenue coming in almost $37,000. That's the income. Now you've got all these expenses, the slip fees, insurance, the maintenance, the taxes, the management fees of the 40%. Those are all costs of doing business. So those become, for the most part, deductible expenses. Also, the interest that you're paying on the boat loan. All these things get added, plus it's now something, a depreciable asset. So you're depreciating that asset over, I'm not sure if it's 5 or 7 year property or CPA can probably,
Can.
10-year property, okay, which is where they came up with the $17,000 a year for a $170,000 boat. So you're depreciating it. Again, that's a cost. And all these things get added in, and those are the costs that you can take off. Now, in the way they prepared this, you wind up with an operating loss for that given year, once you've taken all these expenses, depreciation and whatnot. But for many people in a higher tax bracket, in this case there's 28%, that loss can translate to a nice big deduction, which actually helps you out on the bottom line when you do your tax return. So this is generally what you're looking at when you're in a bareboat charter. Again, you have to consult with an accountant to make sure it's something that's going to benefit you, and you're going to get all these benefits of the deductions, the depreciation, and actually create some revenue. That's basically the way the bareboat charter operation works. There are many different charter operations. You have to kind of talk to them and see what their contract calls for, see what the percentages are. But it all sounds very good. You're using your boat, you're getting all these tax breaks, you're generating revenue. But of course, with everything that's good, there's also bad things. And some of the bad things, your boat's used more than any normal boat. It's used, an additional, in this case, 100 days a year. Some boats are generated or are chartered, maybe 200 days a year. A really good boat, a boat that everybody wants to be on. So you've got a lot of excessive use. That results in a lot of excessive wear and tear, which generally shows on the boat, the interior, on the exterior. You've got a lot of extra engine hours. We've had boats that people have been trying to sell sometimes. The 2005, 2006, a 10-year-old boat that maybe should have 500, 600 hours. It's got 2,500, maybe it's got 3,000 engine hours. Everybody that looks at that boat looks at that, and that's a big deterrent for people when they're looking at purchasing a boat. So that diminishes its value, plus the wear and tear on the boat gives it a diminished value. They look at that one as a boat that wasn't in charter, doesn't have the mix, doesn't have the scrapes, doesn't have a little crack on this lens or that lens. So your boat just has lesser value 5 or 6 years down the road when you decide to take it out in charter and sell it and maybe get a different boat. So you've got some reduced prices, so reduced value in your boat. And a lot of times in the brokerage business, we'll have a boat that, maybe it's a Beneteau or whatever, that moorings has a lot of down in the Caribbean or down in Florida. And we'll have a price for the boat. So then you see one in the cruising world and it's advertised for $69, why are you asking $89? Because that was a boat that was in charter. And again, they just have a reduced value because of all these issues. So something to think about is your boat, when you go to sell it, is not going to be worth as much as a boat that was in charter. Other problems that you have with the boat that's in charter. You get to use the boat. You can go down there and you can sit back and, like I say, in the evening, drink a glass of wine, have a little cheese, and enjoy the sunset. But we had a customer a while back, had a boat in charter operation, very nice boat. And they admitted it was a boat that was more than they could buy if they hadn't put it in charter, if they didn't have this revenue coming in, if they didn't have any deductions. At a higher level of income, so all the benefits of the tax benefits. And they like to go down to their boat and have that glass of wine, but sometimes they go down there in the evening and the boat had just come back from charter, it wasn't clean. The holding tanks weren't pumped up, the refrigerator was a mess, there was a condom in the toilet. There were these things that instead of having a nice, relaxing evening, sipping your glass of wine, the blood pressure goes up, you're making notes, why did they do this, you're calling the charter company, so you don't get that benefit all the time. Sometimes these things happen. And sometimes the charter company, they tell you, we check these people out, we're confident that they know how to operate the boat, we've taken them through the classes, we've taken them out, and for the most part, that's true, but often, everything's a balancing act, and we need to get this boat out more often, we need to get some revenue, and these people weren't the best in the classes, but we think it's a big ocean, they're not going to hit anything. we'll let them out. So sometimes the boat is out there with people that really shouldn't be operating a boat of that size. And sometimes damage happens. The same couple that I talked about that had this beautiful boat that they were really enjoying, well, it got rented out or chartered out by a group that took it over to Catalina. And for whatever reason, the boat, the keel wound up striking some rocks and did some pretty significant damage. The boat was in the summertime, hauled out of the water, was in the yard for 3-4 weeks, insurance issues, and $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. Things that have to be disclosed when you go to sell that boat. Yes, it's had an accident. Yes, it's had keel damage. It was all repaired. And I remember these people were all upset that we're never going to go through this again. This company is terrible. They let the boat out. Well, they put the boat back in the same charter operation and it's back generating revenue. So again, it's all balancing. It must be okay because they're getting these benefits. And it's just, is it good? Is it bad? Yeah, there's good and bad with everything. So, but these are just things you have to consider. You have to really talk to the different charter operations, look at their boats, see how they're maintained, talk to people that are putting boats in their fleet, see what their reaction is. Those are just things I would recommend before you actually just pick a charter company. They're all going to sell you, we're the best, we take care of the boats, we check everyone out. Make sure it's anything else. You just want to make sure you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's before you commit to a $170,000 or $270,000 boat to a group of people that's going to decide who takes it up. That's the basic bareboat charter. That's the nutshell version of the bareboat charter. There are other types of charters. You can have captain charters where you pay a skipper to take it out, like Captain Drew sometimes takes boats out for individuals, for an afternoon, a day sail. But the bareboat charter, that's the nuts and bolts of it. There's another way that people charter boats or generate revenue for boats. It's called the boat and breakfast, which is becoming more popular. Probably we're hearing about the Airbnb, people renting out the rooms, their houses, this and that. There are companies that have been renting boats for overnight, for weekends, where the boat doesn't leave a slip. It stays in a slip. There have been companies around for several years. I remember the first time I saw one was down in Newport about 15, 18 years ago. They had a beautiful brochure. And they were looking at higher end boats, exotic boats. And some of them were pretty expensive, but they take care of, again, maintaining it, advertising it, scheduling it. And once the people get off the boat after a weekend or after a night, they go through, they clean it up, new sheets, new towels, they do all that work. They also take a fee. It's generally, the companies that I've talked to recently, it's about the same thing, about 40% of whatever revenue is generated, they take as their fee for managing it and for promoting it, advertising it, and doing the scheduling. The advantages of that, the boat's not going out of the slip very good at all. It's part of the agreement is it stays in the slip. You can stay on the boat, you can cook on the boat, you can enjoy the sunset, and enjoy being on a boat. These things surprisingly are the couple companies that I talked to, one in San Diego, she's been around for many, many years, and some of these boats, she said, we're renting out 100, 150 nights a year. And they've got a wide variety of boats. They're getting a wide variety of prices too. There's a company also in Long Beach that's doing this pretty successfully. Just on average, a newer Silverton 40-foot, nice half cabin boat. You got a big cabin forward, big cabin aft. So you can put 4 people on it overnight. $230 a night. Average hotel, nice hotel on the water. A 43 Sea Ray, $230 a night. The one in San Diego has an 82-foot motor yacht that they get $4,500 for a week, $800 for a 2-night minimum. So there's significant revenue that can be generated if you've got big enough boat that you can stay on. and you're not running the risk of all the extra engine hours, all the extra wear and tear. Now it's just people basically staying on it, not running it, not going out to sea. So maybe a safer way to go. Again, probably less depreciation in the value of the boat with this type of operation. I haven't seen a sheet like Marina Sailing did, where they break down the annual revenue or expected revenue. But again, from the numbers that they're telling me, and before you can put a boat in with them, they can tell you what you expect, how many nights you're going to go around. So that's another alternative. Now, a lot of people I hear in Marina Del Rey are also taking this, but they're doing it on an individual basis, usually doing it without the dockmaster's consent, without the proper insurance, and probably doing it for cash. But I guess it works, but you run into certain risks. You've got people on your boat that are making dinner, cooking, maybe there's a fire, maybe there's problems with this, with that. And if your insurance finds out that when this loss happened, you were renting the boat out, you're not going to be covered, and you might be making all those repairs yourself. Also, the dockmasters. Almost every slip agreement that I've seen in Marina Del Rey has restrictions on you subletting your boat, having people stay on it, doing any of those sorts of things. I know it's not uncommon in Marina Del Rey, but again, you run certain risks. And as slips are getting tighter and tighter in Marina Del Rey, you don't want to be the one that gets evicted for violating your slip agreement, because then it makes it real hard to find another slip. So I don't know of any company that has stepped into Marina Del Rey and started this. I'm not sure why. I suspect
it's illegal.
It may be a county issue that
No, you can't do it at any of the docks except the commercial docks. It's illegal.
And I'm not sure why nobody's really come up with a way to either find a commercial dock or. But Marina Del Rey, as far as I know, doesn't have any such operation. Long Beach does, Newport does, San Diego does. They're all legitimate operations. If you're thinking of doing something like this, I would say you're better served to use a professional. They've got the insurance, and they've got the slips to do it illegally. She was telling me in San Diego, the Port Authority, which runs the San Diego Harbor, has a lot of restrictions. And that's one of the things. If you're going to do that type of business, you have to be in a slip where it's acceptable, it's permitted. So, again, just another possible way of generating some revenue. And I think it's, I say it's been around for a while. It's just getting more and more, becoming more and more aware of it for people, mainly because of so I suspect at some point it's going to become more popular. That's all I have on those two possible ways to make some money.